The sound of splintering wood echoed through the packed convention center as Jonathan Roumie's body slammed into the stage floor. The man who brought Jesus Christ to life for millions now lay motionless in front of 15,000 screaming fans. His long hair splayed across the stage like a dark halo, and for a terrifying moment, the actor who portrayed the Son of God looked exactly like his crucifixion scene. Security rushed forward, but Roumie's eyes snapped open with supernatural intensity. "Stop," he whispered, somehow carrying to every corner through his microphone. "I need to tell you something before it's too late." The crowd fell silent. Social media exploded. Jonathan Roumie was trending worldwide. The actor slowly pushed himself up, face pale as death, sweat beading despite the air conditioning. This wasn't acting. "I died," he said, voice cracking. "For 3 minutes and 47 seconds, I was gone. And while I was dead, I met him. I met the real Jesus Christ." The words hit like a physical blow. Someone screamed. The live stream exploded as words spread like wildfire. But Roumie wasn't finished. "Everything you've seen me do as Jesus on The Chosen, it's all real. But I've been lying to you about something crucial, something that could cost you your eternal soul." Camera operators zoomed in, capturing every tremor. This wasn't the polished performer they knew. News alerts pinged worldwide. Religious leaders were being awakened. "For years, I've been playing Jesus Christ," Roumie whispered. "But 3 days ago, I discovered there's a difference between portraying the Son of God and actually meeting him face to face. And what he told me about The Chosen, about its viewers, about what's really at stake, it's going to shatter everything you believe about whether watching a show about Jesus is enough to save your soul." The silence was deafening. 15,000 people holding their breath, millions frozen in front of screens, unable to look away from the revelation that would challenge everything they thought they knew. "I know how this sounds coming from someone who plays Jesus on screen," Roumie said, steadying himself against the podium. His knuckles were white, gripping the edges like his life depended on it. "Trust me, if someone else was up here saying what I'm about to tell you, I'd think they'd lost their mind completely." The medical team hovered nearby, but something in his eyes warned them to stay back. "When I collapsed just now, it wasn't the first time." The confession sent ripples through the crowd. This was news to everyone. His management, his co-stars, even Dallas Jenkins had no idea. 3 days ago, I was alone in my trailer after filming the resurrection scene. Ironic, isn't it? A bitter laugh escaped his lips. I felt this crushing pain in my chest, and then complete darkness. But not empty darkness. It was full of presence, full of something I'd been pretending to understand for years. Roumie's voice grew stronger, more urgent. I found myself standing in a place that shouldn't exist according to everything I know about reality. The light there wasn't like stage lighting or natural sunlight. It was alive. It had personality. It had love radiating from every particle. Someone in the front row whispered to their companion, but Roumie heard it. "I know you're thinking this is method acting gone wrong, that I've been in character so long I've snapped. That's exactly what I told myself when I woke up on my trailer floor." But then he spoke to me. Roumie's eyes seemed to look beyond the audience, seeing something they couldn't. Not with words you could hear with your ears. The real Jesus Christ spoke directly to my soul, and every word felt like truth, burning itself into my consciousness. He said, "Jonathan, you've spent years showing people my face, but most of them still don't know my heart." The live stream chat was moving too fast to read. News outlets were breaking into regular programming. He told me that millions of people watch The Chosen every week. They cry during the emotional scenes. They share clips on social media. They buy the merchandise. But they're still lost. Roumie's voice cracked with emotion. He showed me viewer after viewer who thinks watching the show is enough, who believes that being moved by my portrayal means they have a relationship with him. "I laughed at him," Roumie admitted quietly. and the confession stunned the audience. Can you believe that? I actually laughed at Jesus Christ and told him he was wrong about his own show. I told him The Chosen was bringing people to faith, that we were doing good work, that millions were being saved through our storytelling. A tear rolled down his cheek as cameras zoomed in. Do you know what he said to that? He looked at me with eyes that held all the love and pain in the universe, and he said, Jonathan, entertainment about me is not the same as surrender to me. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Entertainment about me is not the same as surrender to me. Roumie walked slowly across the stage, his usual confident stride replaced by something broken, something desperate. Then he told me something about The Chosen that Dallas Jenkins never knew, something that's going to destroy everything we thought we were accomplishing. He said, Jonathan, you've helped millions see my face. Now help them see my heart. The show was preparation, not the destination. Roumie stopped center stage, looking directly into the main camera. Jesus Christ himself told me that The Chosen has become a substitute for real relationship. People watch my portrayal and think they know him. They follow the show, but don't follow me. The audience was completely still. Even the security guards had stopped moving, transfixed by the unfolding revelation. He showed me something that shattered my world completely. Roumie's voice grew urgent, passionate. He showed me faces of people watching The Chosen right now, people in this very audience, people on the live stream. And he told me their names, their struggles, their eternal destiny. There are millions, Roumie continued, his eyes scanning the crowd with supernatural intensity. Millions who love every episode, who quote my lines, who defend the show online, who think they're good Christians because they watch biblical content. But they've never once prayed to accept Christ as their personal savior. The confession sent chills through the arena. This wasn't what anyone had expected from a Chosen convention. He told me the most heartbreaking truth I've ever heard. Roumie's voice began to break. He said, they see you portray my love, my sacrifice, my miracles, and they're moved to tears. But when the credits roll, they go back to their lives unchanged. They think feeling emotional about my story is the same as surrendering their lives to me. I told him I was just an actor, not a preacher. I told him to find someone qualified, someone with theological training, someone who actually read the Bible before getting the role. The vulnerability in his voice was startling. You know what he said? Roumie looked directly at the camera again. He said, I don't call the qualified, Jonathan. I qualify the called. And every mistake you've made, every doubt you've had, every moment you felt like a fraud playing me, I can use all of it if you're willing to trust me. The live stream viewer count had reached unprecedented numbers. Religious leaders were calling emergency meetings. But Roumie wasn't finished. Then, he asked me a question that led to this moment. A question that's going to force every single person watching to make a choice about eternity. He asked me, Roumie whispered, and somehow that whisper carried to every corner of the massive arena. If you knew with absolute certainty that millions of people were going to hell because they think watching you play me is enough for salvation, what would you be willing to sacrifice to warn them? The question echoed through the silent auditorium like thunder. Then, he showed me something that broke my heart completely. Roumie's eyes filled with tears as he looked out at the crowd. He showed me specific faces of people in this audience right now, people watching the live stream at this very moment. And I'm going to tell you exactly what he showed me, because your eternal soul depends on it. The arena buzzed with nervous energy. People shifted uncomfortably, feeling exposed under Roumie's supernatural gaze. He showed me a woman in Section C, row 15. She's watched every episode of The Chosen 3 times. She owns all the merchandise. She defends the show against critics online. but she's never once asked Jesus into her heart. Several people in that section looked around nervously, wondering if he could actually see them. He showed me a man watching this live stream right now, someone who's been moved to tears by my portrayal of Christ's love, who shares clips of the resurrection scene every Easter. But when he prays, it's only when he's in trouble, and he's never surrendered his life completely to Christ. The live stream chat exploded with messages, as viewers felt personally called out. Most heartbreaking of all, Roumie continued, his voice cracking with emotion. He showed me teenagers, young people who grew up watching The Chosen, who think they're Christians because they love the show, because they follow the cast on social media, because they understand biblical stories. But they've never made the personal decision to accept Christ as their Lord and Savior. Roumie walked to the edge of the stage, closer to the audience. Jesus told me something that made me feel like the biggest fraud in history. He said, "Jonathan, they love watching you portray my sacrifice, but they won't make their own. They're moved by seeing you act out my death and resurrection, but they won't die to themselves and be resurrected in me." I felt like I was standing trial before the creator of the universe, Roumie admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. I realized that for years, I'd been helping people feel good about Jesus without actually meeting Jesus. I'd been giving them emotional experiences instead of eternal transformation. The show had become a beautiful, well-produced roadblock to real salvation. The weight of his words settled over the crowd like a heavy blanket. That's when he told me what I had to do, what would cost me everything I'd worked for, but might save the souls of millions who think they're safe because they watch a TV show about the Savior of the world. He told me I had to die, Roumie said simply, and the words hit the audience like a physical blow. Gasps echoed through the arena. The medical team stepped forward, but Roumie held up his hand. Not physically, but publicly. I had to die to everything I'd built, everything I thought I was accomplishing through The Chosen. Jesus looked at me with infinite compassion and said, "Jonathan, you have a choice. You can keep playing me safely, earning applause and awards, helping people feel good about their faith. Or you can risk everything to tell them the truth, that watching a show about me will never save their souls." Roumie's voice grew stronger, more urgent. He told me that this moment, this collapse, this message, it would cost me everything. The vulnerability in his confession was startling. He warned me that speaking this truth would destroy my career, that Angel Studios would distance themselves from me, that co-stars would think I'd lost my mind, that millions of fans would turn against me for suggesting their beloved show isn't enough for salvation. Roumie looked directly into the camera. He told me that some people would use this moment to mock both him and me. But then he showed me something that made every sacrifice worth it. Roumie's eyes lit up with supernatural intensity. He showed me one person, maybe in this audience, maybe watching the live stream, who would hear this message and finally understand the difference between admiring Jesus and surrendering to Jesus. One soul who would stop hiding behind entertainment and actually give their life to Christ. For 3 days, I've been carrying this burden, Roumie admitted, running a shaking hand through his hair. 3 days of knowing that millions of people think they're saved because they watch me portray their Savior. 3 days of realizing I'd become an expensive, beautifully produced stumbling block to real faith. He told me something that shattered my understanding of ministry completely. Roumie's voice dropped to almost a whisper. He said, "The most dangerous thing for a soul is to feel close to me without actually knowing me. Your show has made millions feel close to me, but how many have actually surrendered their lives?" I fought him on this, Roumie confessed, tears streaming down his face. I told him there had to be another way. I told him The Chosen was bringing people to faith, that we had testimonies, that lives were being changed. But he showed me the truth. People were being moved emotionally, but not transformed eternally. That's when he gave me the mission that brought me to this stage tonight." Roumie steadied himself, looking out at the crowd with desperate urgency. "He told me to tell every single person who's ever watched The Chosen that entertainment about Jesus will never replace a relationship with Jesus. And that time is running out for them to make that choice." "He showed me 3 specific faces in this crowd tonight," Roumie said, his voice carrying supernatural authority. 3 people whose eternal destiny hangs in the balance, and I'm going to speak directly to them because Jesus told me their names. A chill ran through the audience as people looked around nervously, wondering if they were about to be called out. There's someone here who's watched every single episode of The Chosen multiple times. You know every line I've spoken as Jesus. You've cried during the crucifixion scene. You've cheered during the resurrection. You've defended the show against critics online. Roumie's eyes seemed to pierce through the crowd. But you've never once gotten on your knees and asked the real Jesus to be your personal Lord and Savior. You think loving the show is the same as loving Christ. The silence was profound. Several people shifted uncomfortably, feeling exposed. Jesus wants you to know that he sees you. He knows that you use The Chosen as a substitute for real relationship with him. Every time you feel guilty about your sin, you watch an episode and feel better. But feeling better about Jesus is not the same as being saved by Jesus. There's also someone watching this live stream right now, Roumie continued, looking directly into the camera. You've been raised in church. You know all the right words. You even pray sometimes. You think you're a Christian because you enjoy Christian content, because you support biblical shows, because you're a good person who loves Jesus stories. His voice grew urgent. But you've never surrendered your life completely to Christ. You've never died to yourself and been born again. Jesus showed me your face as you're watching this right now. He told me about the emptiness you feel even after watching episodes that move you to tears. That emptiness is your soul crying out for real relationship, not just religious entertainment. Roumie's voice softened with compassion. He's been waiting for you to stop hiding behind shows about him and actually meet him. And there's someone else here tonight who's been running from this decision for years. Roumie walked closer to the edge of the stage. You know the truth. You know that watching The Chosen isn't enough. You know that you need to make a real commitment to Christ. But you keep putting it off, thinking you have time, thinking that being a fan of Jesus is close enough. Jesus wants you to know that tonight is your night. This collapse, this message, this moment, it's all for you. He orchestrated everything that brought you here because he loves you too much to let you spend eternity separated from him. Roumie's eyes filled with tears. Stop treating salvation like entertainment. Stop watching Jesus and start following Jesus. The difference between those two choices will determine where you spend forever. So, I'm asking every person who's ever watched The Chosen, Roumie said, his voice carrying the weight of eternity. What if everything I just told you is true? What if Jesus really did meet me? What if millions of viewers are going to hell because they think watching a show about Jesus is enough for salvation? The question hung like a sword over every head. This isn't entertainment anymore. This is eternity calling your name. Roumie looked directly into the camera. What if I'm risking my entire career because souls are literally at stake? I know you're thinking this is too dramatic, too convenient. 3 days ago, I would have thought the same thing. But God doesn't work how we expect. He chose a virgin to birth the Savior. He chose fishermen as apostles. And he chose an actor to warn people that playing church isn't the same as being saved. Every day, people are dying and stepping into eternity. Roumie's voice grew urgent. Some into Jesus' presence, others into eternal separation. Millions thought they were safe because they watched Christian shows, felt moved by biblical stories, admired Jesus from a distance. Jesus told me time is running out. Every person hearing my voice has a choice, and they can't make it tomorrow because tomorrow isn't promised. The weight settled on the audience like a heavy blanket. Here's the choice. Roumie stopped center stage. Keep being a fan of Jesus, enjoying shows about him, thinking that's enough. Or stop hiding behind entertainment and actually surrender your life to the real Jesus Christ. His voice cracked. Keep watching me portray his love, or experience his love by accepting him as your Lord and Savior. He's not asking you to understand everything. He's asking you to trust him with your life, death, and eternity. Roumie's eyes swept the crowd. Will you stop being a viewer and become a believer? Will you stop watching Jesus and start following Jesus? The difference determines where you spend forever. Don't let the chosen be the closest you ever get to Jesus Christ, Roumie whispered. Let this moment be the beginning of real relationship with the Savior you've been watching from a distance. What happens next in your heart will echo through eternity.